Hello, everybody. Welcome to Getaway Day, Episode 3. I am Mason. He is Gautham. If I could figure out how to point. There we go. And you know how it goes. So I guess we'll get right into it. This week we are going kind of talking through the basically what's happened this week in baseball. And then we're going to go into... Why is my phone rebooting? Then we're going to go into kind of what we want to see at the ballpark. And I think Gowie's got a little bit more that he's going to mention about that. And then kind of a summary of the rule changes that MLB is implementing across the different levels this year. And then we're going to finish off the episode today with a definitive ranking of all 7 powder blue uniforms in Major League Baseball. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So Gowie, what did you see this week in Major League Baseball that kind of struck you that you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, so watch some Pirates baseball. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but the Cubs were playing the Pirates this week again, and this is, I guess, a little bit less true than what I had written down a couple of days ago because they won the last couple of days. But being a Pirates fan right now is really a bleak situation. Like, best player on the team, obviously, Brian Hayes, young star, but he's on the injured list now with a hand injury. Not sure on the timetable for his return. But beyond that, really, what is there as a Pirates fan to watch on this team?
Adam
Not
Frazier.
a whole lot.
Adam Frazier.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Frazier's not a bad player, but he's not the reason people are tuning in to watch a baseball game, I'd say.
No, that's fair. Brian Reynolds is probably closer to that.
Yeah, he's at least youngish, unlike Frazier, who's not exactly young anymore. But to add even more like terribleness to the Pirates fan experience, we saw the Joe Musgrove no hitter with a different team. I mean, it was an awesome moment for the Padres being their first no hitter in their franchise's history. But for a Pirates fan, that's just got to be agony to see Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, and now Joe Musgrove like leave your team and go on to do amazing things.
Well, and the thing that strikes me about that is I didn't think Musgrove really pitched very well when he was with the Pirates, whereas like Cole and Glasnow did. So
that's true. That's true. He definitely wasn't at the level of those two, but he showed some potential. And then, like, are the Pirates just terrible at their developing of the pitchers, and they just can't like do it right, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, next you're going to tell me Mitch Keller's going to go to the Mariners and throw a no-no.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that because, like, I mean, he pitched okay this weekend, but like, he's not living up to his prospect like status at all. He was kind of a big prospect, and you wonder if he's going to be the next guy that gets that change of senior and then like really flourishes.
Well, and I'm sure part of it is that having absolutely no run support kind of is it
Demoralizing.
Yeah, it's demoralizing, and it makes it a lot harder to actually perform to the best of your abilities, which is why Musgrove is all of a sudden pitching phenomenally. Wait, who'd they get the no-hitter against?
Texas, who their lineup's awful. They have like 6 like rookies and first-year players,
and then there's Joey Gallo, who hits like 120, but every single thing that he hits is a home run.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
but awful lineup, but still a great achievement for Musgrove, obviously.
Yeah,
and he's from San Diego, so that's like really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Let's see. I was trying to think of who else is even on the Pirates now that we haven't talked about, because all those guys are gone.
Faceless, they're nameless. No one knows.
And Hayes is hurt, who I think Hayes was already the best player on the team, and before he got hurt, he was hitting Uh, 207 plate appearances. That's all he got was
Yeah,
7 plate
he
appearances.
he hit a home run on opening day, and then he got injured in the second game, so it was not much.
Okay, yeah, but so that's a bummer for them. Hopefully, what's his injury? Is he going to be back soon, or is he
There's
roughly?
no real timetable, but from the Pirates' perspective, it's kind of like there's no need to rush it. They're not playing for anything this year. They don't want to risk a serious injury, but so far there's no real timetable on his return.
Yeah, really, the only thing he's playing for is a potential rookie of the year. But being on a team that bad, he's not likely to get it anyway.
Yeah,
So,
but
but,
he's an exciting player. The Pirates not so much.
yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, the only other guys I could think of they still have is Stallings and Gregory Polanco.
Yep,
And
Gregory Polanco is like the guy that's been there for the longest time, and he's kind of like a recognizable Pirate, but he's not very good, and he hasn't been very good for a few years now.
yeah. Oh, and Cole Tucker. He's actually, I kind of think Cole Tucker's low key kind of good.
Yeah, he's not with the big club to start the year, so I
He's
don't know.
not? Why not?
He may be injured, but he's not. He hasn't done much in the majors.
Huh. Odd. For some reason, I just remember him being pretty solid when I see him play. I don't know. I guess to be fair, that's only what 18 games a year, and last year was less than that. It was 10.
Yeah,
Not even 10. It's like
it
8
was
or
it was
something.
like 6 or 7. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
But, huh. Well, sticking with the NL Central, kind of a biggest storyline, and I'm not really sure how it's going right now because I had to turn off the game so that I could actually make sure that the stream didn't drop a whole bunch of times again today. Nolan. Oh, whoa! The Cardinals scored. Um, Nolan Arenado has a 9-game hitting streak to start his career with the Cardinals. It is the second longest hitting streak in Cardinals history to begin your career. He passed Roger Maris, who had an 8-game, and then I believe I can't think of who it was. They just said it at the beginning of the broadcast tonight. 1966, a guy who played with the Cardinals for 1 year, had like a 12-game hitting streak to start the year, and I think the longest hitting streak to start a career with any team is 15 games.
Oh,
It looks like. Oh my God. Matt Carpenter got a hit.
shocker!
I know. He's hitting
Shocker of the
oh
2021
he's hitting
season so far.
077 on the year. Woo!
Yay!
He's not completely useless. No, so Carpenter had been hitting really, really hard. His EV and his hard hit percentage has actually been pretty solid. He's flown out to the warning track about 6 times that I've seen. So it's a matter of time before he starts getting something. Like his BABIP block just sucks. Granted, he's a pure pull hitter, and I've never seen him hit it anywhere except where the shift is. So that's part of it. But but back to my point though. Arenado, he's only got 1 at bat so far today. He's up. Well, there's 2 outs right now, and Goldschmidt's up, but he's about to come up. If he can hit that double digit, that's a pretty big accomplishment. A 10-game hitting streak to start a career with a team. But
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add on Arenado specifically, but I mean, Arenado is a great player. He had a little bit of down season last year. It's good to see him doing what he usually does, which is get hits. And the same can be said about a lot of other like star players that had down seasons, really bouncing back. I mean, we don't know if they're going to have great seasons this year, but like seeing guys like Jose Altuve, JD Martinez has 5 home runs. He had 3 home runs yesterday.
JD won.
Chris Bryant just hit a home run.
JD won AL Player of
What's
the
that?
Week.
Yeah, I mean he's having a monster start. He's absolutely locked in. Chris Bryant just hit his 3rd home run. Baez has 3 home runs. So like a little bit of a normal season, and everything feels better for these players. I can imagine, and they're more accustomed to their circumstances, playing in the COVID age, and yeah, it's good to see stars play like stars.
Yeah, and some of these guys are coming off injuries. I think Arenado is kind of the main example of that. He played with a bum shoulder all last year. With a bum shoulder, I'd argue he played still decent-ish.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
he didn't play terrible, but he obviously was not at like the level he's people expect from him.
yeah, and so far this season, he's starting 333 through 9 1/3 games. He's oh, I can't think of. He's got 12 hits in his first 9 games. So, however many at bats that is. Basically 36, 37 at bats now. So, but yeah, so that's nice to see for me. So, and then speaking of injured stars, though, Aaron Judge, dude plays what 90 games a year.
If
Is
he's lucky, yeah.
a monster when he's playing. But so what happened to him?
Yeah, so nothing specifically happened. Like there was a game midweek last week. He hit a home run, and then like he missed 2 games, and they just were being very vague about his injury. And they were saying like he has side like soreness in his side. So I was like thinking maybe some sort of oblique injury. He's going to go on the injured list. He actually ended up coming back for the weekend and Saturday, Sunday, and playing. So looks like he's avoided injury for now. But with Judge, you almost wonder like you can understand it from the Yankees' perspective. They might want to just like be like really like baby him to the point where anytime he's got any sort of nick or small thing, they just put him on the injured list.
So with him specifically, why don't they basically have him DH 2 out of 3 days? Let him play in the field basically once every third day. And that way you keep the injury risk down because he's got less of an opportunity to hurt himself then. But
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like maybe they should. I mean, typically Stanton is the one that gets most of the DH turn, so they can do something where they like rotate that spot between
yeah,
3 guys or something.
yeah, and they do that because Judge is the better defender. But with
Yeah, yeah.
Judge's injury history, yeah, Stanton has injury history, but his injuries are kind of obscure for the most part. Some of them, some
Yeah,
of them not, but
yeah. I
I
mean,
would be more concerned about Judge than I would be about Giancarlo.
they've both had tons of injuries the last few years, though.
Yeah.
So
Who else do they have in the outfield? They have Clint. They have Aaron
we
Hicks.
got Aaron Hicks, yep, and then they've got like what's his name, Brett Gardner still getting some time out there, and then Judge.
Okay. So when you were mentioning that they should just put him on the IL whenever there's like any inkling of an injury, is that really the best way to use the IL? How should the IL really be used?
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point because there was a rule that was supposed to go into effect in 2020, which was going to um, get rid of the 10-day IL for pitchers because teams, specifically, I know of the Dodgers, seem to put like every single guy on the IL, and no one was really sure what their injury was. So it just felt like an abuse there. And I mean, they didn't end up implementing that for this year or last year because of COVID, but that seems like a step in the right direction because ultimately, like the fans don't want, IL trips for people that are useless. Like they come out to see Aaron Judge play a game. They don't want him to be on IL if he's not actually injured.
Yeah, but it's more for pitchers though. So really, isn't it just like a and I'm not saying that they should keep it, but isn't it more just a kind of a fancy way to do a 6-man rotation so that you can keep your bullpen as full as it is, keep rotating so you're skipping a start for somebody and then just rotating through guys and just saying, "Oh, he tweaked his shoulder, he tweaked his bicep," and then just keep
Yeah,
putting guys on the IL, take
it's
one off,
definitely a
put
way
one
to
on.
play. Well, they can't like reactivate them off the IL immediately because there's a certain amount of days that you have to. Well, okay, so for the players that they're messing around with are the young players with options. So when someone goes on IL, they can just quickly recall someone uh, that's in the minor leagues.
Okay, so it's
So
basically a way that
that
they could use Mitch White, they could use Dustin May, they could use Brewstar without burning an option.
it still burns an option, but they have that option season available to them, so they use it to its full use, I guess. But it's
Okay.
not like the best for those players' development necessarily. Maybe it's the best for helping the team win, but I don't like the idea of them using the injured list for their advantage.
What?
Uh, maybe when they shouldn't.
Well, and it seems like that's really only something that behooves a really good team that's also got a really deep farm system. So a team like the Royals, a team like, I mean, even the Cubs, like it doesn't really behoove them because they don't have um, a deep uh, farm system. The rotation really isn't that deep itself, and so they're not going to want to sit there and do that because you want your best five guys to play if they're healthy. So you're going to try and use the five guys until they can't. So it's really,
Yep.
uh, I don't want to say cheating because it's legal. It's a loophole, is what it is.
Yeah.
But huh,
And there was one more thing that made me think about this. So the Milwaukee Bucks, they had a game last week to go cross sport on you, but they rested all five of their starters. So like, just imagine that if you show up to the Bucks game and you're like, hey, where's Giannis, and where are the rest of the four guys that he usually plays with?
pop quiz.
I
Who are the
mean,
other four guys?
that's sorry, I can't answer that. But yeah, I mean, that can't happen in baseball really because there's not enough players on the roster for the entire lineup to be gone. But we want those best players out there as much as possible. But the teams are trying to balance it with their player staying healthy throughout the season, which is the challenge.
Counterpoint. It is something that can happen in the MLB. It did last year with the Marlins.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it was like their entire rotation in half of their roster or their lineup. But
yeah,
you get my
but that
point.
was like a switching out of the players on the roster. All the starting players couldn't be on the bench like they can be in an NBA game.
Okay, that's fair. But then at least at that point, like all the main starters will come off the bench. It's just a minutes management there, as opposed to like putting a guy on the IL and saying, "Well, we're not going to see you for 10 days. Bye." And then
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
I'm not sure
Dustin
if the
May
Bucks
comes back.
actually play or not, but they may have not even played in the game, which is something that's becoming really popular in the NBA, where they're doing like the load management. I think that could be coming to MLB as a way to keep the players fresh.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of MLB players that are not going to be happy with that. There's a lot of
Oh
guys that are
no, no
trying to hit
chance.
162, and I think
Oh
there's
yeah.
going to be enough of a stink made by a couple players. But all right, so we do have the other. Well, it's only three. Um, only three other players for the Milwaukee Bucks, but it looks like it's Chris Middleton, Dante DiVincenzo. I don't know if he's got that spelled right.
Clearly,
Gian-
we're not big NBA fans.
Giannis Antelope. Definitely not Antetokounmpo. It's definitely Giannis Antelope. That's my new nickname for him because he's on the Bucks. Uh, Brooke Lopez and Drew Holiday.
Cool. Yeah, I saw Drew Holiday got like a NBA money is just insane. He got 160 million for 4 years, and he's a role player like on a good team. But like that is monster money. That's ridiculous.
So
$40 million a year.
is NBA money guaranteed like MLB money?
That I don't. It may not be fully guaranteed, but I'm not sure.
Okay, because that would be. Um, sorry for all the dinging there, guys. I haven't figured out how to mute my Discord notifications, so I imagine that's coming through on the stream there. So sorry about that. Um, but yeah, I'd be curious on the NBA contracts and see how it compares because they say that baseball players make the most money, which I think by total value of the contracts they do. But I mean, Bryce is what, 10 years, 12
You
years?
got 13 years, 13 years and 330 million or
Okay,
something like
and
that.
then it was Trout was 12 years, 425.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But obviously, yeah, their contracts are fully guaranteed, so that's a difference from football, of course.
Yeah, although football is moving more towards guaranteed contracts too. More
I mean, you
towards,
can see
not
why the players
not
would love it. So
Okay, so apparently in the NBA, it depends on the contract. Some are non guaranteed, but most major players on the Supermax contracts, I assume, get fully guaranteed.
okay, yeah, so that's definitely a super max contract. So
Yeah.
Drew
Oh,
Holiday is going to be enjoying his life a
Drew
lot.
Holiday does have a Supermax?
I mean, wouldn't 160 million in 4 years sound like a super max to you?
I I don't know. I don't know
That
enough
sounds
about the
that
NBA.
sounds like the definition of super max to me.
I know LeBron makes like $1 billion a year or something because he's got the deal with Nike. That's all I got. But
All
yeah,
right.
so I guess the one thing on the Judge comment there, you touched on the fact that they weren't really being straightforward with what his injury is, but I think the quote from Aaron Boone kind of says it best. He was asked in an interview, "Would you consider him right now injured?" And Aaron Boone's response was, "Uh, hmm, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. And if I answer yes or no, it's going to be conflated a lot of different ways." End quote. It, how much more bullshit could you spew in one sentence? Well, I guess two sentences and some verbal pauses.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this kind of behavior towards injuries and not wanting to give up your competitive advantage. But maybe he honestly didn't really know if Judge was injured or not. But it seems like he's okay because he's playing. Uh, he's in the lineup today. He played over the weekend, so that's important. I think that he's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love seeing Aaron Judge healthy. The dude rakes. It's really fun to see him play. But um all right. What do you say we move on to the stat of the week?
Let's do it. So last week we did the weighted on base average, a pretty big stat for evaluating hitters. So this week I wanted to do one for pitchers, and that stat is fielder independent pitching, or FIP. So FIP is a pretty useful statistic for the pitcher's performance. Um, Everyone knows ERA as a stat to tell us how many runs the pitcher gives up, earned runs that the pitcher gives up while they're pitching. But sometimes this isn't the best way to look at how the pitcher actually did because it doesn't really take into account the different defenses playing behind the pitchers, the luck of the batted balls that are happening in the game, and then just the general sequencing of events. So, um, what I mean by sequencing is like if there's a home run and then a single and then a double, that's gonna and then out. That's gonna uh, be a far different outcome in terms of the runs that are scored. If the single is hit first, then the double is hit, and then the home run, because that's 3 runs scored rather than just one. Um, so what fielder independent pitching tries to do is it tries to hit on the factors that the pitcher has the most control over, that being the walks, strikeouts, hit by pitches, and home runs. Um, so it um, it allows for league average luck, or it assumes that each pitcher is going to experience league average like luck and like league average defense. So um, I was just looking up before we started here at a couple of examples from 2020. So I went to the bottom of the FIP leaderboard and I saw Patrick Corbin had a 4.17 FIP, FIP being on the same scale as ERA, just as a way that you can compare against ERA. And then I saw Adam Wainwright had a 4.11 ERA. So, or he had a 4.11 FIP. So they had very similar FIPs, but the ERAs are completely different. Corbin had a 4.66 and Wainwright had a 3.15. So you might be asking, why are they so different? And FIP can kind of give you an indication that player might have been the benefit of some good luck. But in the case of Wainwright versus Corbin, I think Wainwright played in front of a much better defense than Corbin did. He's also a guy that doesn't get as many strikeouts, so he doesn't typically have very good FIP.
So
one other thing I'll mention about FIP is that.
Quick question. So basically, what you're saying is
Yep.
that Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, and Dylan Carlson or Tommy Edman or whoever you plug in right field for the Cardinals, because they're so fast and can get to more balls, they can affect the ERA, but the FIP does not factor in anything that they do. So you're basically saying anything that has a, let's say it's a 50% catch percentage, would be considered towards FIP, almost. You're not considering the ball, but that's more like what you're imagining with what FIP is.
Right, you're assuming that you've got exactly average defense behind you rather than
Three
like
or
a
two
bad
Gold
defense
Glovers.
or a good defense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that
And
helps.
then yeah, so that's like one example. I mean, FIP never tells the full story because you're really only looking at those few things that the pitcher is said to have full control over. But we know that the pitcher can control many other things, like a pitcher that can get a lot of fly balls but not line drives. That's a pitcher that's always gonna have an ERA that beats the FIP. Then a pitcher that can control the running game, that's also gonna be one that beats FIP.
So you're saying fly balls, a fly ball pitcher would have a better ERA than a FIP.
Yeah.
What about a ground ball pitcher, a guy like Dakota Hudson?
Yeah. At the extremes, both like extreme fly ball pitchers and extreme ground ball pitchers can beat um, their FIP with their ERA.
Okay, but then someone who's more strikeout focused, like throwing it back a little bit, a Kerry Wood, is he going to have a higher ERA than a FIP?
Yeah, that could be definitely possible.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. So I guess, uh, did you have any other examples or any other points there on FIP?
Not really. I think that example kind of covers the basics of it, but it's pretty simple. It's got a pretty simple formula. So if you want to look that up, you can. I'd recommend the Fangraphs page. It's got a really good explanation of the formula and kind of like why we use FIP. So if you want some more information.
All right, perfect. And then one more quick question on FIP. So I know last week we said WOBA was like the base statistic for other things like WRC plus. Is FIP used as kind of the base statistic towards anything on the pitching side, or no?
Um, so FIP is like the sort of grandfather ERA estimator, you could call it. So there's a number of other ERA estimators that people use, and some people have been working on different ones that are more predictive. So the thing with FIP and ERA is it really tells you what's going on at that time, but it doesn't really have a predictive value. It's not going to tell you this pitcher is going to do something in the future, but they can use sort of derivatives of FIP to create a predictive statistic that might help us say Adam Wainwright's going to do this next season or whatever.
Okay. All right. Cool. Um, so there's kind of a rough transition here because there's not a good way to relate FIP to this, but I do know that kind of the next topic we wanted to talk about was well, I guess let me back up a little bit. So when you're going to a game and you're watching this, and we're talking about how FIP can affect guys if they're strikeout pitchers, ground ball pitchers, whatever. Which one of those, not thinking about it from a FIP standpoint, but just kind of in general, kind of what are you wanting to see when you go to the ballpark?
Yeah. So I went to the Cubs game last week against the Brewers. It was a beautiful day. Probably the best weather I've ever experienced at Wrigley in April, and it was early April, which is like crazy. It basically felt like summer. Um, Pretty good game. Stayed close the whole way. Brewers ended up winning in 10 innings. I hate the extra innings rule, um, but it really got me thinking about what I wanted to see at the ballpark. And the biggest one that stands out to me was just seeing defense in action. So I really like to watch like outfielders and infielders too. But I like to see how they're moving between the pitches as the pitch is being delivered, as they move to one direction or another, anticipating a hit being directed that way. And then I like to see flashy plays. I mean, it's cool to see them on TV and everything, but to see them really do that um, like live, it's really cool, and um, it gives a greater appreciation for just how fast the game really is.
Well, and it produces a lot of adrenaline in just the people watching. Because like for
Absolutely,
me,
yeah.
like I really like seeing kind of I think the foul balls that go right along the line that are close enough for a player to attempt to catch them, especially before the netting. Granted, I'm really glad there's extended netting now because that got into some uh, situations. I think
Yeah.
is the best way to describe them. Um, but for me, kind of seeing like the Prince Fielder when he was with Texas, he went over on the first baseline, kind of right where the wall started to come back in towards right field there. I think he missed the foul ball, started to fall into the stands, and took a guy's nachos and ate them. Uh, the like that kind of action, I really like to see. Home run robs, just balls that they're home runs or someone can actually reach it and catch it. I don't get me wrong, I love seeing Yerman Mercedes hit a 485-foot bomb. That is amazing. But the 402-foot to dead center field, the 366 to left, uh, those are almost more exhilarating to me. Just because you can see off the bat, like your Mercedes sitting at 485. Like you hear the crack, you look at it, you're like, that's gone, and you can just go absolutely berserk. But you see this ball from like a guy like uh, Shane Robinson back in 2000 and what was it, 2011 postseason, I think, is the first home run he had ever hit. Dude's tiny, cannot hit it to the warning track ever. He hit one a foot over the wall. Player goes up to try and rob it and can't. And that's probably even more exciting to me. So I don't know. It's almost more, I want to see these balls that are closer to being in play or in play. With that being said, I know the MLB is trying a lot of things to partially for pace of play, because that's something that they've been after for years. But then a lot of it is to try and get this whole two outcome baseball to go away and try and get more action in the game so that we can kind of show off the athleticness of guys like Fernando Tatis, guys like Ronald Acuna, even Christian Yelich, Mike Trout, and just try and show off that these guys are more than just bombers. They're just freak athletes in general. So I guess, um, do you want to kind of help me summarize some of the different rule changes that are being implemented at different levels, just to kind of as test cases for trying to improve the game?
Yeah. How about like I read the rule change and then we can talk about each one.
All right, works for me.
Yeah. So first one is at AAA, the size of the bases will be increased from 15 inches to 18-inch squares.
All right, so that's essentially taking the distance between bags, because it's center to center is 90 foot, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so basically you're taking 7.5, 15 inches off a 90 foot, which I don't. So it'd be 88 feet and 9 inches or whatever. Instead of
It's
being,
definitely a lot less than that. You're only changing it by about 2 inches or so.
yeah, but there's a lot of stolen bases from first to second that you're out by about that much.
Yeah, I mean anything to really encourage more players to take the extra base. Like, why not? Like, there's no harm. And then one other thing I was thinking with this rule is that you've got a little bit more space at the bags. Maybe you can avoid some like collisions or things like that. That's with having a larger base, more area.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I think first base is probably the one spot where that's not necessarily going to be as big of a benefit, though. Because I feel like, yes, there's a little bit more room for the first baseman to be off the baseline, but I almost wonder, and I think this might have been talked about, but it's not one of the rules that they're discussing right now. But like in high school softball, they have the double base at first.
Double base, yep. I mean,
So
to be honest, I would be completely fine with that. Like, you always hate to see collisions at first base. People like getting their wrists hit, and that's not great.
yeah, or getting spiked on the back of their ankle, things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
People really need to stop sliding into first base. I just have to say that.
I don't know. I like doing it in MLB The Show, so I don't want them to remove it from that. Um, it never helps. Sliding into first is stupid because it slows you down and you get there slower, and it's
Yeah.
always a force at first. So I don't know why you would ever slide unless the
I think
guy.
it's just like instinct. Like, you just feel like you can get there faster, but it doesn't seem like you actually would.
I think the one time that it might actually benefit you would be if the first baseman came off the bag to catch it and tries to tag you.
Yeah.
Sliding might
Yeah.
then be beneficial, but other
If
than
you're
that,
avoiding a
there's
tag or something, yeah, that's the only way.
yeah, because you can't do an Adrian Beltre where you run 30 feet out of the baseline
Yeah.
just to get called out because you're 30 feet out of the baseline. But I
But
know, but
regardless, that's not like a huge. It's not like a very impactful move. I don't think anyone's offended by them changing the size of the base,
no,
and
and
that's why they're putting it in at AAA because those guys are the closest to the majors. Don't really want to rock the boat at that level. So
yeah, and I think I would actually like to see that in the majors anyway.
yeah, I'm
Cuz
fine with that.
cuz one, especially with those throwouts to second that are about this close, I do not want Tim LeCastro to get thrown out at second. Period. He's 28 for 28 in his career. He's the fastest guy in the league. Fastest? Second fastest. Is there
Yeah,
someone
he's up there.
is there someone faster than him now? Cuz I know it was him.
Maybe if Ronald Acuna like gets tested again, like he might be the guy now. He lost weight.
It could be. I think Tyler O'Neill could potentially get there too. But um no, but I think it'll help him get even more. Granted, he's never had a problem getting a stolen base. Um all right, what's your second
Second
new
rule.
rule?
Second rule. So in AA, teams will be required to position 4 players in the infield. Each player must have both feet in front of the outer boundary of the infield dirt. In the second half of the season, MLB may also require that teams keep 2 infielders on each side of second base, but that is not a requirement at the outset. So I'm going to let you take this one first because I think we are going to fall on opposite sides on this one.
Yeah, so I when you read it right there, I actually noticed something that I hadn't noticed in the past. So it's both feet fully on the infield dirt, or is it like in basketball where if your toes are on the dirt, you're considered in the dirt? Do we know?
To be honest, I don't know the specifics, but like, doesn't that seem like something that's going to be really hard to enforce? Like, right when the pitch is being delivered, they're going to be running to where they need to go.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do that. I
And
I
what's the
it
penalty for not doing it too? It doesn't make a lot
I
of
mean
sense to me.
the only penalty I could really think of would be a balk, but
Or maybe they could just like call an automatic ball or something like that.
yeah, something like that. But I think you would almost have to have even more umpires, wouldn't you?
Someone wants
Or
that.
reposition your umpires or something so that you have them basically your second base umpire is going to be directly behind second base right on the edge of the grass so he can see as much of the arc as possible. You're going to have Joe West be posted out back behind first on the edge of the grass for him to look down. It'd be almost like a line judge in tennis. But I do like it from the fact that having everybody on the infield, no matter where they're positioned on the infield, because for the first half of the season, you can have 4 guys between first and second if you want. It's happened a couple of times, but it's not a typical shift. Um, and you can still have the second baseman playing back on the edge of the dirt is close to where they play a lot now, but it gives more room for balls to drop for guys like Matt Carpenter, for guys that are these pure pull hitters, because pull hitters do not want to try and go opposite field because the team's statisticians or whatever, the fancy sabermetrics math guys, have done the math and said that you're 3% more likely to get a hit trying to hit it over the shift or do damage hitting it over the shift than you are hitting against the shift and getting a single. So they're telling these guys to keep trying to hit over the shift anyway. So if all of baseball tries to do that, then it really doesn't matter if you say you have to have 2 guys on either side of the base, but the shortstop can play basically at second and the second baseman can still play in shallow right. It's not going to change much. Whereas having it where everyone has to be on the infield allows room for guys like Carpenter, guys like Chris Davis, guys like who else is a left-handed heavy pull hitter?
Joey Gallo.
Yeah, Joey Gallo. Granted, he doesn't have a problem. He just hits home runs. He's a bad example. Um,
He still hits lots of balls into the shift, and that's because of the approach. So I want to. I mean, do you want to finish or finish
that's
yours?
that's basically the end of my point. Where I think
Okay,
it'll
so
benefit for guys that
Yeah,
hit into the shift, that are
yeah.
told to hit into the shift.
I completely agree with you. So I'm gonna make two different points against this. So the first is, but the problem in my eyes is not the shift. The problem starts, if I back it up. The real problem to me is the pitching revolution and how these guys pitch so ridiculously hard. The only the only feasible approach is a power pull happy oriented approach. So my example is from this weekend. So Jacob DeGrom's pitching against the Marlins, and he's just sitting 99 miles per hour. He can hit 101 whenever he wants. He's
Jazz,
hitting the edges of the zones. And
Jazz.
the Marlins know that they're not going to string together three singles and another hit like that. That's just not going to happen against Jacob DeGrom. You got to
Yeah.
sell out for power. The only way is to just get on top of this fastball and hit it out of there, and that's something that worked. Like for Jazz Chisholm over the weekend, he was able to turn on 100 miles per hour and hit the ball out. So um, that approach, like you said, like this approach is not going to change. Um, and not having the shift is not going to change that either. That it's even more incentive because there's no the left side of the field is not going to be open like it is now. They're going to keep selling out for power, and they're going to continue hitting the ball to that right side of the field.
See, uh, I get that, and I sort of agree with you, and I sort of disagree with you. So I think the benefit of banning the shift is these guys that are selling out for power, because there's going to be fewer of the gaps in right center filled. They're going to have more of the balls that drop just short of the wall drop. They're going to be hits. They're going to be singles. They're going to be doubles. And I think that's where this is a benefit to the league, because you do have guys like DeGrom that you can't do anything except hit for power. But if you hit for power, you hit a gapper that there's not a guy there to cover it, unless you have Harrison Bader and Tim LeCastro out there in center and right. And the All Star game, I guess, is where you're going to get that. Well, LeCastro's, I think, a center fielder too. I don't know. Unless you got two guys that are that quick, there's gonna be more balls drop. It's gonna be better
Yeah.
for
There will be
BABIP.
more balls drop. I agree, but I will push back a little bit by saying that most of the balls that are getting eaten up by the shift today are singles. There's only like a handful that would be doubles if the shift weren't there. The rest of them are singles, and it's
Yeah.
only about 500 over the course of the season. And then the final thing I'll say is that I don't like the idea. I mean, I've never liked the idea of telling the defense how they can play, and I can't think of any other sport where um, the defense is not allowed to stand where they want to stand to do their jobs.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that baseball is a little bit different than other sports. Because, like in the NFL, the offense is uh, maybe not told exactly where they need to be, but they're told how many people can stand where, how many people have to be on the line versus how many people can be in the backfield. There's certain
That's
things you
true,
can and can't do.
the defense isn't told when they know it's like a run play. They're not told, hey, you can't stack the box here.
Well, yeah,
They're
but
allowed to.
but the defense in football doesn't affect both the offense and the defense. Whereas in baseball it does, because what the pitcher does directly affects what the hitter does. And then there's the fielders behind him. So it's not like there's the quarterback that takes the snap and then they're in control the entire time, from snapping the ball to handing it off or passing it or whatever. In baseball, the pitcher initiates the play, and then the hitter has to respond, and then the defense responds to the response. It's almost like the initial serve and volley in tennis. So in tennis, you have to be on opposite sides of the court. So I would argue it's almost more like that, where you do almost need two say you can do whatever you want within these bounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's a turns out I have a lot to say on this topic, but I'll also add with making a rule change like this, I would say it's very it's unprecedented for this sport to make a change like this because this rule change is specifically only helping like a certain set of hitters. It's not helping any right-handed hitters for the most part because they're barely shifted. It's only helping these specific left-handed hitters that have this approach. And I think that's a bad idea for baseball because every other rule change, like moving the mound back, lowering the mound, those help like pitchers as a whole. And then they've made other moves that have helped like all hitters. This one only helps some hitters, and I don't like the idea of that.
Yeah, I think the way that things are moving now, though, is you do see more shifts against righties. Yeah, the first baseman's always going to play at first because that's where the force is, but you start to see the second base shift over, and you have three guys on one side and one on the other. It's kind of the same as what you have with a lefty. Vladdy is the perfect example. Vladdy always has basically the third baseman, the shortstop's right in the or the third base plays on the third base, um, the baseline. The shortstop plays right in the middle. The second shifts over basically right behind second base. And then you have the first baseman playing about a third to somewhere between a third and halfway between first and second to block anything that he might hit over that way. So you are seeing it more and more with righties. And I think as the game shifts more towards this whole two outcome home run strikeout sort of game, you're going to see that more. So doing it now, even though it only benefits lefties, is um, kind of it's stunting a future change while fixing a past change. So that, that's
Yeah,
kind of the other way to see it. So
but regardless, I think this rule change still like you hit on it right there at the end with the two outcome or three outcome game. Like it doesn't fix that issue at all, and they have to do something else to fix the interaction between the batter and the hitter, or the batter and the pitcher, to reduce strikeouts because that's the main problem.
yeah, I
The
do think
shift doesn't fix that issue.
I do think it helps a little bit. It just doesn't help as much as they want it to.
Right.
Because you are going
Right.
to see a couple more outcomes on a little bit more regular basis. So you're going to see more singles, you're going to see more doubles. You won't see any triples to right center, most
Yep.
likely, unless you're playing in Oracle Field, or Oracle Park or
Yep.
whatever. Um, but yeah. All right.
All right.
What's your next rule?
Next one. Step off rule. In high A, pitchers will be required to disengage the rubber before attempting a pickoff throw. Violations will result in a balk.
Okay, and so this pretty much specifically affects left-handed pitchers
Yes.
because a right-handed pitcher naturally has to step off to be able to throw to first.
Correct. So
All right.
this one just encourages a little bit more stealing when a lefty's on the mound. I mean, seems harmless enough to me. I mean, lefty pitchers are not going to be happy about it, but
Yeah, but I think this kind of goes back to your point on the shifts, though, where you say it really only benefits kind of one type of hitter. Well, the way that the rule is currently written, where it lets you get away with this, unfairly benefits one type of pitcher.
yeah. So
Granted,
maybe it's even that out a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, so this one just seems kind of like a no brainer to me. And it allows you to get a little bit more, to get some more stolen bases off lefties, which is pretty rare unless you're, like I was saying, I don't remember if it was on the episode last week or if this was just outside of that, where Lou Brock stole most of his stolen bases out of his 900 and was it 967 or 987 career stolen bases, whatever it was. He stole most of them off of lefties
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
when this rule didn't or wasn't in effect. But he's kind of the anomaly there. And so this just kind of evens out kind of it makes it a little bit more fair uh, to left-handed and right-handed pitchers, as well as allowing a little bit more room for these freak athletes to try and steal a base. So
Yeah,
I like that rule.
I'm interested to see how that one plays out for sure. Okay, next, electronic strike zone, low A Southeast League. Select games will use the electronic strike zone. First tested in the Atlantic League and Arizona Fall League. This one's a no-brainer for me. I mean, I don't think we can avoid this like one way or the other. It's coming to the major leagues. We just don't know when.
Yeah, so with this one, I will say there is, as a fan, it's a little bit of a bittersweet move. It's gonna benefit in the long run. It's gonna be way better. Things are gonna be a lot more regulated. I think baseball is one of the sports that's a little bit out there as far as the same thing could happen over and over and over, and it's gonna be a different result.
Yep.
And it's it it's the one sport that does not follow the rule of insanity, where the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Baseball's the one spot where that's true, where you can get a different result. And so this is going to make it a lot more fair as far as guys like Joey Votto, guys like Matt Carpenter that they know, and Juan Soto that know the strike zone better than anyone. They they know exactly where it's at. They don't swing at anything outside of that magic box. They will they get rung up an unfair amount of times if you're watching the Pitch FX or whatever they call it for your favorite channel. Um,
I just want to interject there,
yeah,
like a little bit of a pet peeve for me, the pitch tracks thing, like that. I don't really like watching it on TV because like ultimately it's irrelevant whether it's in that box or not. It matters what the umpire on that particular day is going to be calling.
yeah, yeah. And so we have the technology to do it. It's been done in different leagues before, and it's had success. The one thing that is going to go away is pitchers that have nasty stuff that get these calls that are a little bit outside the zone, and nobody can deny it's a great pitch. But sometimes a guy can lay off that great pitch because it looks like it's in the zone and it just falls out. So they'll try and
Yeah,
chase it. Now
that's
those are
that's a good
going to
point.
be
I
called
hadn't
balls.
thought about that, but have you seen that like 3D like plate that they show on ESPN where they show the ball coming in and
Yeah, the 3D
it
zone where it
sometimes just
just nicks it.
yeah, it just nicks the bottom of the zone, and that pitch is almost never called a strike. That's something that both the pitchers and the hitters are going to like. If that pitch is actually called a strike with the electronic zone, then both the pitchers and the hitters are going to need to adjust to that.
Yeah. So I guess that brings up a good question. Are they doing a 2D or a 3D zone? I guess it
I have
doesn't
no
matter.
clue.
If you're doing 2D at the front of the plate, then it's going to be the same. But
Yeah, it
um,
should be a two D zone. Yeah,
yeah, because I guess you're never going to have a ball on below the strike zone that comes back up. So I guess that won't matter. But at the top of the zone, you could have something that drops down when it's high. That all right, yeah. So it should be a 2D zone.
and then a side effect is that it's going to kill the I guess the art of pitch framing, which is really what is pitch framing. It's just a way that like bad umpire calling is quantified essentially.
Yeah, and I mean that in the way that the game is currently played, there is something to be said for pitcher or for catchers who are good at it.
Yeah, yeah, it's valuable,
It's
but it
it's
won't be
valuable with the
valuable
way the
anymore.
game is played now. I do almost wonder if you're going to run into when you start talking about Hall of Fame for guys like Buster Posey or Yachty or Brian McCann, who let's be real here, probably won't make the Hall of Fame just because his name isn't that big, even though his stats match up with guys like Yachty and maybe not offensively like Buster, but better defensively than Buster, you know. But those guys, you're not necessarily going to. Uh, is it going to be an asterisk? I guess is my main question.
I
Where
mean,
they were stealing
this is
pitches.
going down a different path, but like
Yeah.
the, I don't think pitch framing is necessarily like uh, a trait that should like set you apart in a Hall of Fame type discussion because you don't have that information for any of the old catchers anyway. So it's like, could you really be using that? Match them up against those players?
Yeah, that's fair, but I don't know.
But yeah, it's a
It
still
is a
today,
good
and it won't.
way. It is a good way to distinguish the good and bad pitchers of today's game, though.
Yeah, correct.
So, I don't know. So I guess
All
maybe
right.
my point is for Gold Glove, it should count. Maybe not for Hall of Fame, but we'll see. All right, what do you got for the next one?
All right. Next one's the pitch timer. So in the low A West League, pitchers will be placed on a 15-second pitch clock, which is 5 seconds faster than the clock currently used in Double A and Triple A. What do you say?
I don't know. I'm a little bit confused on pitch timers. I get how it'll help speed up certain guys, but then I don't necessarily think that it's going to speed up the game that much overall. I don't think you have any starters that take about 35 seconds between pitches because their arm will get tight. It's mostly relievers that have that issue.
Yeah,
So I don't think that from a pace
I
of
think
play thing, it's really going to be that big of a difference.
yeah, it's a
So
few minutes like per game, I would say.
for having a pitch clock versus none, but I don't think having a cutting 15 seconds, I'm not sure is necessarily gonna do much in the long run.
Yeah,
I almost think set it at 20 seconds or 25 seconds or whatever, and then leave it because you have some guys who, when they're rushed, they throw bad pitches. The more pitches you throw, the longer the game is gonna be. So you almost have to have this happy medium. So
yeah. The one thing about like relief pitchers, and there's been studies on this, like giving them as much time as possible helps them reach that max velocity that they are typically coming at the batters with late in games. So like if you speed them up, they're not throwing as hard, and that's something that's going to fix the balls in play issue, which I feel like is the biggest issue in baseball today.
yeah, I can see that. Although I don't think I necessarily want Aroldis Chapman and Jordan Hicks to only be able to throw 100 because it's amazing to see these guys throwing 105.
Oh yeah,
It's
those guys can do it in whatever
yeah, but they're not
however
going to
many
throw
seconds.
105. They're going
Totally
to throw
fine.
102, and I want to see these guys break the record. So
Yeah,
maybe we hold off on pitch clocks in the majors for another 2-3 years. Let Chapman retire. Let Hicks get through his like prime, and then put it in. And then I'll be
yeah,
okay with it.
sounds good.
But we can limit Brewstar's second half of his career. I'm cool with that. But all right.
Last one. Pickoff limits. Across low A, pitchers will only be allowed to step off twice per plate appearance. Any subsequent throw over must result in successfully retiring the runner, or it's a balk. This is a weird rule for me, and I really don't know what to make of it because there's a chance that it makes stealing like way too easy once they've like made those first two attempts. What do you think?
So is it any step off, or is it any step off and move to first?
I mean, based
Because
on what I'm reading here, it just says step off,
yeah,
but
and that concerns me because maybe this is short term memory, but let's say it's 2017. You're playing against the Astros. You decide you need to change signs, and then you feel like you need to change signs again. Well, now you can't try and pick off unless you know for a fact you're going to get him. And
yeah,
I don't know. I don't like this one. I don't think. just gut feel says this one's not going to do anything to improve the game. And if anything, it's just going to make it a little bit worse.
Yeah. Just to wrap things up on these different rule changes, I the thing I really like is that they are going to be experimenting with them in the minor leagues. I think that's important, and that's not something that they've really done. So now that MLB has the control over the rules in the minor leagues, they can actually study the effects of the different changes and then decide like down the line. So they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so the one thing that I don't know if they've mentioned if this is what they're going to do or not, but I guess my last nugget of wisdom here, if Rob Manfred or maybe Ken Griffey Jr. are watching the stream or watch it on YouTube, um, anything that you decide to keep, don't put it in the majors straight away. Work it up 2 years at this level, 2 years at this level, 2 years at the next until you get that rule to the majors. I just feel like that's a more natural way to get these young players to kind of be used to all the new rules at the same time instead of giving like um, Nelly Cruz, a guy who we think is incredibly fun. Granted, I don't think a lot of these are going to affect Nelly, but you get my point.
He's
Um,
never going to retire.
well, and he doesn't steal bases. He doesn't. I think the biggest thing that's going to affect him is electronic strike zone.
Yeah.
But he's not really a uh, disciplined guy. He's more of a I'm going to swing all the time and hit it really hard. But step it up slowly. Don't go, oh, it worked in single A, let's throw it in the majors. Start it in single A, go to double, go to triple, go to the majors.
Yeah, like on that point, most of the guys that have debuted in the last few years, they've already played with like pitch clocks, and I don't think anyone's really complaining. So like, I could see that one being implemented relatively soon.
Yeah, yeah, I can too. But like the pitch clock one here is just a shortened pitch clock from what it is. So I feel like pitch clocks are basically next year with the CBA. That'll probably be worked in.
Yeah, I'd say so.
DH and pitch clocks are probably the two things that we're gonna get next year, no matter what. So,
Yeah, that seems likely.
all right. So I will give you about 3 more seconds if you have any more closing points there. Otherwise, I think it's time for our top. I'm not going to call it top 5 because this week it's top 7.
Go for it.
All right. So this week, instead of a top 5, I've been thinking about it, and powder blue has been making a comeback. Powder blue jerseys were big for away jerseys in the 70s and kind of the 80s. And so the Cardinals, I think the 82 and 85 World Series is the Cardinals wore powder blue away uniforms. And the Phillies wore powder blues. And basically every team wore powder blues. I think the Cubs wore them, right? Andre
I think so.
Dawson,
Yeah.
didn't he wear powder blue a couple times?
Yeah, they definitely had some powder blues in there.
Yeah, and so I was thinking with the comeback of powder blues, and they're now being, and I'm not 100% sure if the Marlins or the Mariners have one this year. I think the Marlins counts as baby blue.
Yeah, that one's a
So,
little different.
yeah, so I didn't include it here. I don't know if the Marlins have, or the Mariners have one, or if that was just their spring training jersey.
Yeah, that one's a little bit different too, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so they're not in this list. So, excluding them, there are 7 teams that have powder blue uniforms. And I decided to try my hand at ranking them in order from best to worst. So, starting at the worst is the Tampa Bay Rays. Oh, and I meant to put a note down here crediting the or where I got the pictures. It's from sportslogos.net. So just before I forget, um, all these pictures are from sportlogos.net. They are kind of cartoony, so um, they might look a little bit different to you if you're watching them on the field. But the Tampa Bay Rays became a team in what, 98? Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they don't really have this history of having powder blues back in the 70s and 80s. And so whenever they dropped Devil from the name, um, and then a couple years later, they decided to implement powder blues. And while I don't think they're terrible looking uniforms, to me they just don't have the history that comes with powder blue. It definitely is a Florida thing, but I did give them a number 7 because it's also a ripoff. If you look at the Cardinals cream jerseys, and spoiler alert, the Cardinals powder blues are going to be in the top 6. They look the exact same, and it's kind of a ripoff from the Cardinals cream jerseys. Granted, the Rays had the powder blues first, but I just think it's not quite as iconic. I don't like it quite as much. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they're not my favorite. I mean, I don't hate them, but they're just all right.
Yeah, and it's weird to me that they use the Rays with the sun and the R and the Devil Ray on the hat. Like I feel like you almost got to pick one logo for that one. If you're going with Rays as in
They're
Rays
a
of
very
Sun,
confused. They're a confused young franchise.
yeah. So I think maybe here in about 20 years, I'll let them have a powder blue if they figure out how to make everything coordinate. All right, so number 6. This is a new one as of 2020, and it is the Texas Rangers. Now, while I don't hate the jersey, I do find it a little bit bland. Just the fact that it's a very thin red border around the letters, and then um, the other big problem for me is they have 2 different hats they'll wear with this. They'll either wear a powder blue belt and a powder blue hat, or they will wear the red belt red hat. But no matter which hat they choose, it's the old block style T on the hat. With the script Rangers, it just looks wrong. I don't know. And it's new enough that I haven't grown to love it, so it got number 6. At number 5, and this one I was kind of going back and forth on if I thought it should be number 5 or number 4, but I do have the Kansas City Royals. I think with the Royals design, I prefer the royal blue. I think just kind of with their name, powder blue just seems a little bit odd to me. Um, I do overall like the look of the jersey, but they're just I liked the other 4 better. So that's kind of why it ended up at number 5. And if you have any opinions at any point here, Gowie, go ahead and shout them out.
Keep it rolling. Let's go.
All right, so number 4, and you're gonna fight me on this one, Gowie. I know that for a fact. Number 4, I have the Toronto Blue Jays. I love these uniforms. Don't get me wrong; they come in at number 4, but I love them. The powder blue bill on the hat with the dark blue on the back, it throws me off a little bit. I would almost stick with the full navy blue hat with this jersey. The font is awesome. The color is awesome. I think that hat is the one thing that'll make this uniform better for me.
Yeah, I completely agree on the font, especially the numbers look like awesome to me, and I think this should be their like full time uniform.
I do
Blue
too.
Jays.
It's a really unique uniform. I don't think any team has ever used that same font that the Blue Jays have, and I just like it a lot. They're the only Canadian team. They have a unique jersey. I think it just fits. So, all right, at number 3, and the top 3 starts to get a little difficult for me. At number 3, I have the Minnesota Twins. I I don't know why. I feel like this isn't exactly what the old school powder blues were for the Twins. This is kind of a new school, kind of what the Cardinals did, where they invented their new powder blues. But I think it looks really clean. I like the 3 colored stripe on the sleeves. I love that it's the script Twins. They do the full navy blue hat. It's basically the Blue Jays uniform done right, with what I just said. Where I think if they fix the hat, that uniform would be impeccable. I think the hat is what makes it for me on the Twins here. Plus, I really like that since there's a little bit of red on the sleeves, that it does have the red font. Whereas I think if the Rangers did all red font with maybe a blue outline, even though it would be a direct ripoff of the Twins, and now that I'm looking at it, it's the same font. So it would be Yachty just hit a solo home run. Woo!
Is this a new uniform?
Yeah, so all the pictures that I have are as of 2020. So
So do you know how long the Twins have had this, or maybe just
I
2020?
I'm not really sure. I didn't have enough time between the
Because I've
time that I
definitely
did my
seen this one.
rankings.
I just don't remember seeing it that much in the past.
Yeah, because I know Rich Hill was wearing it last year, but I don't know. I could look it up here, but um, I don't know off the top of my head how long they've been using this. I think it's only 2 or 3 years. So then at number 2, and this one was hard for me. The top 2, I absolutely love both uniforms. They're stellar uniforms, and partially because I didn't want to be misconstrued as biased, and partially because I think the top one just has a little bit more of an iconic look for me. Number 2, I have the St. Louis Cardinals powder blues. These are the away Saturday jerseys. They are the exact same design as the cream jerseys, which I would argue are potentially the best uniform in the league. The Cardinals creams is the same uniform in powder blue. It looks so sleek. I'm trying to figure out what player I'm going to get on mine, and then I will have one and I will wear it on stream at some point. I might go with an
On
Arenado
Nagowski.
now. What?
On Nagowski.
Nagowski is going to be kind of the new Jeremy Hazelraker, though. I think he's a
Yeah,
one
he's
and
like the
done.
classic like Cardinal guy.
Yeah, he's the Devil Magic guy of the year.
Yeah.
But I don't know if long term I can support a Nagowski jersey. So I might go with an Arenado. I might try and find someone else. I might go old school and do an Ozzy. Who knows? But we have one spot left. Best powder blue. Gowie, surely you've narrowed it down to which team it is.
I actually don't know.
You don't.
No.
All right, number 1, we have the Philadelphia Phillies. So the reason this one gets the number 1 for me is this is the exact design that the Phillies wore in the 70s. They brought it back as a Throwback Thursday uniform, and they would wear it as their Thursday unis, and then they decided to keep it. And then Bryce hit a grand slam wearing this jersey, and I love that the numbers are up on the kind of chest level instead of being down low, and just everything about it is just unique and iconic to me. So the Phillies do get my number 1 best powder blue jersey, with a close second to the Cardinals, but it's a new design for the Cardinals, whereas the Phillies do go with the retro, and that just edges it out for me. So, you got any comments here on my rankings? Anything you disagree with?
I definitely have the Blue Jays higher, but overall, I like your list. I think you did a good job.
Well, thank you. 10 seconds, closing comments for the episode.
Some really good pitching matchups tomorrow. Strasburg versus Flaherty, Giolito versus Bieber, Hendricks versus Woodruff. Some good stuff to watch tomorrow.
All right, good deal. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight, and we're gonna go ahead and throw this up on YouTube here probably tomorrow. So be checking it out there. Leave any comments that you've got for us, anything you want to see, anything you disagree with, and we will see you here again next week. So thank you very much.